This is Friends and Brothers podcast. I am Rob. This is Marcus. Friends and Brothers is a channel to discuss all topics concerning modern men. Our mission is to change lives and be a resource for you to find or regain your inner yelp. Thanks for tuning in as we get ramped up here this afternoon. If you like our podcast, please don't forget to hit the like and subscribe button. All right, we're going to get started. Today, we are going to talk about getting comfortable being uncomfortable. We're going to unwrap that word jumble there. I think I first heard about getting comfortable being uncomfortable watching the Beijing Olympics in 2008, and the infamous Michael Phelps had actually used this phrase to talk about his training. So I think from then on, being kind of having a little bit of a swimming background myself, it really came to heart for me, and it's really kind of maintained its place in my inner philosophy of how I work and how I approach growth, right? And I think it really does remain true because true growth I don't think comes from sitting in our comfort blanket, right? So today, I think we're going to talk about that complacency, growth, facing fear, and just having a general dialogue. What do you think, Marcus?
No, absolutely. I remember that Michael Phelps in the Olympics and that whole situation, so I completely understand where you're coming from.
Yeah, it's always been inspiring to see. If you didn't watch any of the Olympics, you missed out. But those races, Beijing was definitely the first one where it really where I heard that quotation from him. But I'd seen him in the Olympics prior to and after, and it's a really great story. But it's just so true. During that episode or that particular summer, the example they used was where he thought he missed his goggles. His goggles were missing at the beginning of practice one day, and Coach Bowman had actually seen the goggles just sitting there on the side, and he just put them in his pocket and never told Michael about that. So he had to go through the entire practice without goggles. Now, if you've ever done any swimming in a chlorinated pool,
Very
as
difficult.
a kid, probably after a little while, you're playing around, you're not wearing goggles per se, but your eyes get a little bit bloodshot, especially if you're in the pool for more than 30 minutes or so. But when you're swimming, 5,000 meters in an hour, like Michael Phelps would do, and he's going to do, several hours out in a workout. You're talking about quite the headache that you're going to get from that, right? And so it was but it rang true because I think it was maybe even 2012 in London. It could have been Beijing. I can't remember. It's been a while, but his goggles actually fell off during the race. Like he dove in and they just popped down. So he had to swim. I think it was like the 100 fly with the goggles like sitting here.
Right.
It's not a comfortable thing. So moral of the story was, hey, like he wouldn't have been, he might not have won that race, because I think he ended up winning the race too.
Yeah, well,
because he went through that practice
swimmer.
and he had that memory in that practice that he was able to kind of reflect on and say, no, I can do this. I've done it. I did it for a lot longer than just 100 meters, right? And
what you're setting a little bells off left, right, and Sunday over here. But one thing I'm just thinking about is I don't know if any of you guys, again, what we're talking about are topics of things that relate to everybody, but specifically that for men that are out there and then need to have a resource to kind of hear about some things and have some regular guys go through it all. But
yeah.
You have all these folks, like one that's coming to mind as you're saying this is David Goggins, who's a Navy SEAL. Now, when this guy got into the service, he was he'll tell you, and I'm going to use some terms. Yeah. He was a big fat piece of shit that he would explain. He's like, I was a piece of shit.
Yeah.
That's how he felt about himself. But it was being uncomfortable or being comfortable with the uncomfortable of being fat and lazy and all this other kind of stuff that pushed him to do what he does now,
right?
With ultra marathons and ultra running and all this kind of stuff. But
it's a great read, by the way.
Huh?
It's a great read, by the way.
Oh yeah, his book.
Yes.
No, well, he's an amazing man. I met him and Marcus Luttrell and the rest of the crew on I think it was the something military service tour or something that
Oh, really?
Chris, what was the sniper, the Marine, the
Yes, I know who
Navy
you're
SEAL
talking
sniper
about.
that was killed. His wife was there. Anyway,
Yeah.
all amazing people. But it's a good segue, though, that brings this topic up. Each one of those people, as they were talking, as it pertains to being comfortable with uncomfortableness, would say that at no point did they think that they were special people. And I would venture to say that's 99% of people's problems out there. And for my own getting comfortable with uncomfortable, it's like you just really have to understand you're not going to be a sofa surfer. You can't be a couch potato. You and I are both athletes to a large degree. So for us, it's a lot of self-motivated types of things, but most people are not built that way. They want to be that way.
There's always a different motive. Everyone has a different motivation.
Yeah, well, in a professional coaching capacity, I will tell you time and time again, we've talking about this in other conversations, but time and time again, I'll get, well, I want to look this way, or I want to feel this way, or I want to get stronger, or
Right.
these goals that they've set up. And the face-to-face conversation starts to diminish from a smile to, oh, I've got to put that kind of work into it as I'm having the conversation with them. I'm like, listen, I can get you there and we can get there together as a team, but you're going to have to put the work in and you're going to have to follow my lead. Like you said, coachable moments, but it's in a kinder, gentler way. It's not like you're sitting there and demanding stuff, but at the end of the day, if you want to get to a goal and it's not within your comfort zone, it's that old adage of fight or flight, right? So you're either going to fight it or you're going to flee.
Yes.
And I don't know about you, but my natural inclination is not to run. I'm going to go right at it, kind of a thing. And so being comfortable in that uncomfortableness kind of relates to this whole idea of you got to get comfortable with pain to a certain degree.
Right.
Whatever, it doesn't have to be physical pain, but it can be physical pain. It can be mental pain.
That's part of the growth.
Tell you, I admire what it is that you guys do from the distance athletes. I will tell you, I'm not built that way. So for you to coach me, we would have a lot of resistance. We would have a lot of resistance because it wouldn't be something I want to do.
Yeah. Well, if it's not something you want to do, then that's not the means to get there, right? If you don't want to run a marathon, don't sign up to get a marathon. Don't sign up with the marathon coach, right?
Yeah. Right.
But if you don't want to run, but you want to do a marathon, well, then that's a heart-to-heart that you also have to have with yourself.
That's right.
Too, right.
That's right. That's the uncomfortable part, right? You got to have the personal conversation. Say, all right, well, you're going to be uncomfortable because you don't like to run or you don't like to swim or whatever.
Yeah. I'll be honest. I'm fortunate in that the athletes I've coached, they know when they're kind of done, or if yes, I accomplished what I wanted to. Okay, I move on, or I do this or that, right? I've not fortunately had that athlete, triathlete, or runner, or person, swimmer, or whatever, come to me resisting the process. Not always following it is another thing, but truly resisting the process.
Yeah.
I've been fortunate to not have to deal with that situation.
Yeah.
I think partly because I have them, as talked about in another podcast, going through that athlete assessment and having the conversation before they even have day one of their training. We're having that heart to heart saying, you're putting in the work, you're going to do this. This is coming from you, but it's based on your feedback and what you want to do. Right. So I'm not trying to take one program that can't be that can't be customized. For me, it's the exact opposite. We're working with what you want to do, what you can do. When it comes to so for example, diet and nutrition, which I subscribe to zero diet, and the whole idea of a diet I think is complete garbage, because there is no one way.
Right.
To get to that goal, right? But you are going to have to face the certain fears. You're going to have to face the unknown, right? And doing something new is the unknown for us. And that's where I think that resistance comes from, is because it's uncomfortable, it's new, but once you get through that, I mean, I've had that moment, I don't know how many times, that not even the aha moment, but the wow, that was really like, it's like a exhilaration of sorts, you know. So with work, we had this opportunity in Europe to do a mountain hike, and I've never done that before. But I figured, you know, this is something I should be fun, right? And it's experience that I don't want to miss out on. And but it was, you know, I can't train in South Florida for a mountain climb. We were
Yeah.
starting at about 6,000 feet, going up to
The
about
Indian climbing, maybe, but
right. Yeah, it just, you know, it's not the same, the altitude and everything. It's just, you know, but I was going to have, but throughout that experience, our first hike on the Friday morning, it took us about 4 hours, and we'd gone up several thousand feet in that time. Then we slept in the hut that night, and then we went up another several thousand feet the next morning, and then we went all the way back down. And you know, we had a bus ride back to the main city afterwards, and it was just us who'd done the hike together. And I'm just sitting there, I'm like, you know, I just feel like a total and complete stud right now, because I honestly did, because I literally climbed a mountain. Like, I was at the peak of a mountain.
It's nothing you've done before.
And it's nothing I've never done before, right? And you know, I could only prepare for it as much as I could, right? Having a good solid endurance base helped, right? But it was still something I'd never done before, you know, in so much even sleeping in a hut in the middle of a mountain, like literally that there's no road that goes there. The only way to get there and back out of there is by walking or hiking or by helicopter.
Yeah,
so
really
yeah, like, so you have to like, so that sets a big fear, right? You know, like, oh shit. You know, like,
well, talk about being uncomfortable.
Right. You know, and we had a few colleagues who were not as prepared, but, you know, I had to tip my hats to them. They saw it through, and we had, you know, we had a very successful climb overall with people of different capabilities, and they really went outside their comfort zone to accomplish this, even being ill prepared.
Yeah, there's another, again, you're having things go off in my head, but Ed Mallett has this one book or comment that he says, and I didn't know it was out there until I saw it one day, but I use it all the time. So obviously it rings true with a billionaire, but it's one of those things where it's just one more rep.
Just one more,
set,
right?
One more step, one more.
Yep.
Now, that's not that terminology in my mind to accomplish what it is from a goal standpoint. Being comfortable with that uncomfortableness is you don't know what that next step or that next thing is going to be.
Right.
But you have to put one foot in front of the other and be comfortable with that step, and then the next step and the next move to get to where you want to go. In this case, you know, you're walking up a mountain you've never walked up, trusting the fact that, you know, you can do it.
Yeah. And, and having trust in those with me who were experienced, right?
Yeah.
And listening to what they had to offer as advice and coaching, right? Because that was my crutch, right? And there were a lot of points in the trail that I didn't know where the trail was.
Sure.
Like, I literally didn't know where the trail was.
Yeah, trust fall kind of situation, right?
Like, I actually started going the wrong way, where at some point somehow our group on the Saturday morning, when we're doing the hike from the hut up to the tip of the mountain, so somehow our group got split up a little bit, and I started going up a little bit different way of this route. And they're like, "You're going the wrong way," and I'm like, "Okay, well, you know, I mean, it wasn't a big deal, but fortunately, it wasn't like we were full off trail. We were so high though that it wasn't like there was trees that get lost in either. Yeah. In fact, during that part of the hike, we actually had to hike across some glacial snow. Because the snow had covered over the trail itself. And right. So that was fun.
In that situation, what was it that you felt was providing you the tool set or the skills to overcome that discomfort? Or again, I hate to keep using uncomfortable because that's the title of what we're going over, but that pain, that threshold.
It was an uncomfortable sense at first, because we'd done one hike already earlier, you know, the previous day. and we are probably halfway into this hike towards the top of the mountain, right? And you get to this point where you say, okay, there's glacial snow covering, a good 100 feet or so, from that would have to cross. We could either turn around and go back home, or we could go all the way down and then around and all the way up, or just go across. And we decided we're going to go across. It's not that far, but let's think this. So let's take a pause here and just reset.
Yeah.
Think about it a few minutes, and come up with a plan, right? And so we had, our lead said, okay, I'll just, I'm going to dig my heels in with each step. So the next person's going to go and take those same steps, and now they have some footing to work on. Okay, but we're not going to rock we're not going to walk normal. We're going to have to kind of lean onto the mountain.
Yeah.
One guy though, he thought it was easier to kind of walk sideways, and which we thought was dangerous. And he ended up kind of getting nervous and getting scared. And he ended up actually saying, okay, I'm done. He turned around and went back to the hut. But it was a matter of just saying, okay, wait, hold on, right? What do we need to do? How do we make this work? Is it doable, right? Yes, it's doable. Okay, let's just take it one step at a time. And that's probably a good example too. It's just, one step at a time. And so we had one guy go, another guy go, and then we had a female in the group. So she went, and there was only she was actually the only female in the morning group with us. And so, all the other guys were like, oh, I can't get chicked. So, it started happening faster, I guess you could say.
If I'm hearing you right, though, in this situation, you had everybody that was going in each other's footsteps moving forward, one step at a time. So everybody from a tools skill set standpoint, they decided, okay, as a collective, we're going to go and take one step at a time and follow each other. And then you had one that diverted the path by going sideways that went backwards.
Yes.
So there's a little parable in that to me, is like you're following each other's footsteps because you're knowing that it's working, but you're also trusting what's come before you to a certain degree.
And you're building on that. You're like, so, with each footstep that goes in there, you're building that sort of base for each step as well. That right. So you're just building on, you're solidifying that one, right? Because the first person who goes, they're literally digging the step.
Yeah, everybody, right? Whoever's the first person is always the first guinea pig.
So
they could have
yeah, and honestly, we were looking at okay, well, if we slide down, because it wasn't too far, it wasn't like we were going to slide down to our death, right? So we analyzed what's the death factor too in that scenario, and it was it's like, yeah, we might get a couple bruises, we're absolute worst case scenario, maybe a broken arm or something if we really start tumbling or something. But there was some bush down at the bottom, and it wasn't more than maybe 200 feet of a drop if we and it wasn't a drop falling 200 feet. It was like a slide down, right?
I don't have anything as far as that dramatic. Although there are tons of stories.
But you know what? Doing something like that experience, and again, pushing beyond those limits that we think exist,
right,
really opened up the eyes. And just and then again, 30 minutes later, we're at the top of a mountain overlooking. So this was in Austria, but at the end, on the other side of the mountain was actually, it was the border to Germany. So so I'm at the top of a mountain in Austria looking at Germany from the other side 30 minutes later, right?
What's also coming to mind, so sorry, I don't want to interrupt, but what's also coming to mind is the term persistence.
The persistence and just having the vision, right? And just keeping to your goals and objectives ahead. And you're doing it together as a team. Right. And you're there for each other, right? You're supporting each other. You're encouraging each other. It was very much a team bonding activity and moment.
So then how would we communicate that very same way of accomplishing that goal for somebody who's just doing something on their own as an individual? If you're not in a team environment,
right? I've got that scenario was a group-oriented scenario, right? So if I were there by myself, maybe I would have turned back. I don't know. Had never done it before, right? Or maybe if there was one other person there, right? We probably would have still been able to get through that.
Yeah.
Whether in an extremely small group or just me and coach type of thing, or just solo, it's still looking at it and saying, what do I want to get out of this, right? And
Yeah.
really keeping that at the forefront and not and pushing fear to the back, right? If fear is at the forefront, then we're just not going to. Then there are no goals. They're just dreams.
Well, this also goes to the other topics that we've mentioned in the past, but being comfortable. If you are wanting to accomplish a goal like that you've never done before, you have to understand that you're going to be uncomfortable because it's something new, completely new.
Right.
Um,
Complacency is like a warm blanket.
Yeah.
Right. And you're not going to go anywhere just sitting there, all wrapped up.
Well, it's unfortunate because human nature wants to be comfortable or wants to have some sense of security, but in modern times we've become more and more that way, and unfortunately it's taken that razor's edge that we all need to accomplish the things that we want to. We all sit around, I talk to men and women, but again, we're gearing a lot of what we talk about towards men specifically. But so many people want to accomplish whatever these tremendous goals are, and as you're talking to them, they say they want to do them, but they're not willing to get outside of the comfort zone, the box, the pain threshold, whatever those things are, to get to where they want to go.
Yeah. And you just have to keep practicing too. So I do have a friend, he's a triathlete, and he went through this period of time where he had several long distance races, half Iron distance races, and he kept freaking out, if you will, during the beginning of the swim, and he would DNF the race in the first 100 yards of the swim of what would be a 5 to 6 hour race for him, right? So he kept, that fear just took over, right? Yeah. And he's done these events before. He's done open water swimming before. It wasn't even his first time, but he just
got him and made him all anxious about the swim.
Something like his anxiety took over, and his headspace went the wrong direction, and he couldn't get out of that in that exact moment at that particular time.
Yeah.
And he really went probably a good year and a half of several different probably a half dozen races or events where he couldn't get over, he couldn't get past that. He kept persisting though, right? And he eventually got through that hurdle, and he's done fine. In fact, a couple of weeks ago, he just did a half Ironman, did really well with it.
Oftentimes that comes to how we're framing it, like how we're looking at those kinds of things, right? So in using the folks that I specifically work with from an overall strength and conditioning standpoint, again, it's those one extra set of whatever they're doing, or whatever weight they're doing is a little bit more, whatever the challenge is going to be. I don't have to get into specifics, but oftentimes, you get into this headspace where I've not done that before, or I don't believe that I can do those kinds of things. And, I have this little moniker at the bottom of a signature of mine. It's like conceive, believe, and achieve, right? So those are mental mindset basic terminologies.
Right.
At the end of the day, if you don't believe in yourself enough to accomplish whatever it is you're not going to do it. I mean, you have to have some sense of belief. I'm not saying, oh, I believe I can fly off of my house and I'm going to fly. I'm going to die if I hit. I'm going to break every bone in my body. But you have to have a certain amount of belief and fortitude in yourself just to go that one extra step and just have faith. And I use faith a lot, so faith and belief kind of go hand in hand. But you have to have a certain sense of faith in the unknown or belief in the unknown, and there's things that are occurring around you that you're going to get there. You just got to frame it a little bit differently and say, yeah, I can do it, and I'm going to take this extra step. And I can do it, I'm going to take that one more step or run or whatever.
That's where coaches or I'm going to say I'm going to stop at coaches. I think if we have trusted partners, right? I mean, a coach is a trusted partner, or should be, but a trusted partner could be your spouse or, your best friend. Right. Unfortunately, sometimes though, those closest to us can be a prohibitor of that. That's why we really, I would frame it more to say trusted partner,
Yeah.
right?
I understand totally. Yep.
Not dogging my wife or my friends.
No, no,
They
no.
don't know. Sometimes they say, "I want to do this," and are you sure?
Yeah.
Yes, I want to
Well,
do
yeah.
that,
I mean, that's the
right?
thing
And,
is
so they're
they may
already
not be
like
on the same
questioning
page as
whether I
you.
can do it, and like,
Yeah.
hold on, like, what kind of support structure is that for me?
Right. Right.
But eventually they come around to it, or at this point they know, like, yeah, Rob, he'll just do it, right? Like, I don't have like much say. It's just too strong headed to like say to take my advice or whatnot. But I think it is important to note here for everyone, safety is utmost important. So while it's important we face fears and we take risks, we have to do it mindfully and be smart about it. So just a
No,
little caveat
absolutely.
out there for everyone. I'm not saying jump off a bridge just because you haven't done it before, and it'll, let's
Of
not
course.
be dumb.
Well, the thing is too is there's always a way to get to where you want to go. I
There
don't
could
know
be
how
several
this
ways.
relates to being comfortable in uncomfortable situations, but if you think about it and how we evolve as human beings, what we want to do is we want to accomplish this goal. We're trying to figure out. So I remember you telling this story about trying to find a solution to cleaning the floors that we had talked about in the previous podcast.
Yep.
So you found a solution through that, but there's a myriad of other kinds of things that we could come up with. So as an example from a fitness or wellness coach, like with some of the things that we do, just because you had one way that you're trying to share with this person how to accomplish it, there may be 20 or 30 different ways to get there. So you have to be a little bit patient through the process of the uncomfortableness, because one way may not be the next best way for you to get there. Um, you know, a big question I get a lot of times is when it comes down to, well, what should I do next in my training to get to where I want to go? Again, in talking about guys, I'll just keep it there. But the guys will come, they want to get stronger, they want to build muscle. And so I go through this whole process of conversation with where we're going with things. And then I said, okay, well, what are you doing to change anything that you're doing to get to where you want to go? To speak to uncomfortable, you get in these repetitive habits because you're doing something,
Right.
So say, for example, you're coming into a gym and you're doing the same workout routine and you're doing the same weight and you've done that for a month. Okay. Now you get to a point where you plateau. What do I do? So you start asking me. So I give you answers, and then you kind of make a little bit of a change, and you get some progress, but
Right.
eventually that goes to the wayside. You go back to whatever was comfortable, and you come back to me and you say, well, I'm not going anywhere. And I said, well, what are you doing? Well, and then I have to call you out on your bullshit because you went right back to the same stuff that you came to me. And that's one of those things where, again, human nature is to fall back on what we know and what we're comfortable with.
Go back to that warm blanket.
That's right. Go back to the warm blanket. That's exactly right. I love to be comfortable. I like to sit and doing all that kind of stuff, but I really like to be challenged when it comes to especially physical activity, but the mental piece, all kinds of different things. Because again, what you talked about is that resistance to what it is that you're wanting to go as a human being is growth. And there is no growth without challenge and adaptation.
I'd actually presented I think it was an 8-second commercial. It was a Nike commercial to my team earlier this spring. And it was, it centered around, the fear of success. And that's what keeps us back, right? Until you do it.
Yeah.
And, the commercial was this little kid at like a high dive, like a 5 or 10 meter platform. And, he's literally like a 5-year-old, right? So it reminded me of my son, of course, too. And he looks down and, they have the voiceover, and then he finally just jumps in, until you, and it, so like the way that was timed, it was, until you do it, right? So, but it spoke to the fear, like our fear of success, right? We don't go there, right? And so how does that, So I'm not a millionaire, right? But how would it, like, am I holding back from becoming a millionaire because I've never been a millionaire, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
what do I do with that? Because with that comes all this additional responsibility about managing my money. And so, that's even one for me that, I'd love to be a millionaire and
Sure.
have that level of financial freedom. But, not there yet. But there is a fear, like, that's uncomfortable for me because I've never been a millionaire.
Yeah. Well, and then the other part of it though is the psychology around all those kinds of things.
It
What's
is.
funny is that you're talking about that commercial. I have that very same. It's not a commercial format, but I have that very same image of that little boy
Yeah.
facing down this big dive, and it
Yeah.
basically says "Find your strong"
Yeah.
on it, and it speaks volumes. But in that, I lost my train of thought through what you're talking about. But the thing is the resiliency that we have is coming from adapting through challenge, adapting through the uncomfortableness and the pain to get to the next step.
Because there's something better beyond that, right?
Well, we from like human beings, from a psychological standpoint, are always going to go to the side of the negative first and a negative mindset first.
Right.
That's just how our bodies are programmed. Our minds are programmed. So if you can reprogram your mind to look at it and go, oh, wait, no, nothing's going to happen to me in this situation. I'm just going to look at it this way. And if you start doing that more often, then you're going to start seeing things open up a little bit easier for you, a little bit better for you.
Yeah.
So I can just leave it right there.
That said,
mic drop.
I think it probably is a good opportunity to take that time to close it out. I think we have talked a little bit about different areas of being uncomfortable, but being comfortable being uncomfortable and pushing through, pushing that envelope, right? Not so much ripping it open, but opening the envelope, just a little bit, and getting 1% better, 1% stronger, every day. So I liked your point, Marcus, about conceiving, believing, and achieving. I think that's very important, and you are right also or at least I agree with you in the the mental and psychological benefit that this brings, and that's what it comes down to in the regard of being uncomfortable and that personal growth.
Yeah, and we're regular guys, so we're putting this out there for everybody else, that may not have a place to either consume it, see it, or hear it. If you connect up with us, that's what we're going over, because we go through it on a daily basis too.
Yep. And as a coach, it's just been amazing over the last 5 years of being a triathlon coach. I haven't coached hundreds of athletes, but I've coached, a couple dozen, and it's awesome to see their stories and their success going and doing things they've never done before. And that has been the act of getting in there, getting into the pain cave, being comfortable, being uncomfortable, and pushing through. And the self-realization from that is just really awesome to witness.
Yeah, I'm sure.
So, all right. I think that's a wrap for this discussion here. Appreciate you listening in. Thanks for the insights, Marcus. We'll be talking to y'all soon. In the meantime, don't forget to hit a like and a subscribe buttons there, and we'll be seeing you in the near future.
See you guys.
Take care.